So, since there's been some talk about what is Svadharma and Entelechy, I thought it would be interesting to give a little yogic perspective on these two. Uh, Mainly because we have a lot of talk about it nowadays, but the talk ends up becoming more confusing than useful to people. Because many people talk about following your bliss and what is it that makes your heart sing and do what makes you happy, and so all of which are accurate, but that's not necessarily what Swadharma or Entelechy means. Now, Entelechy is the only word I've found. It's a Greek philosophical term and it means the purpose encoded within. In India, we have the notion of the Kita Brahmari Nyaya, that the caterpillar, has a purpose to become the Brahmari, the butterfly. And that is a law. It is a yogic thing. And the belief is that it is the aspiration and the intense desire of the caterpillar to transcend itself that it becomes the butterfly. So in yoga it is a very, very important concept. But deeper than that, they know that it is the nature, it is the encoded purpose of the caterpillar to become, it is the entelechy of the caterpillar to become the butterfly. Now, the caterpillar is a very ugly, repulsive sort of thing, and the butterfly is the exact opposite end of the spectrum. So, yogis are very much in love with that image because they say that is what happens to us in the spiritual process, where we all start in this cocoon of our conditioning and our limitations or whatever, and we do not realize what we can transform into. So it's a very, 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 very significant. I've spoken extensively about it, I've blogged about it, I won't waste any more time on that. But they understand very clearly that it is not just the aspiration of the caterpillar that makes it the butterfly, it is the Swadharma, it is the entelechy of the caterpillar. Similarly, it is our Swadharma to become enlightened and liberated. The human condition is such, the human possibility is such, that every human being has the right and the capability to become enlightened and liberated. Now, that is a common feature, but because of the karmic reality, our embodiments are different. Our vasana samskaras, our desires, our tendencies, our multiple lifetimes of deepening the grooves or habit in certain channels, they create us in certain embodiments. And to be embodied means to be limited. The minute you have a body, you have no matter how brilliant, you have created a certain boundary, you have created a certain fence, you've created a certain kshetram. So to that extent, what do? That is where you need to find what is the purpose for which you have been born, which is exactly what Entelechy means. You are a unique event in the universe. For what reason did the universe need you? Now it's true, most people seem rather like bars of soap, one is just like the other, and if one slips out of your hand and falls down the toilet, it's not really a big loss. While it may be true in a sort of numbers sort of thing, from a yogic point of view, every life is irreplaceable. Every life had a unique purpose, and if you miss it, that is very tragic. If you misuse it, that is even worse. So which is why in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna makes his famous statement, Svadharma nidhanam shreyo, parodharma bhayavyo, which means to die in one's own karma is the highest, and to die in somebody else's dharma is frightful, is dreadful. Yeah, because if you live and die in an inauthentic manner, if you live and die in a manner that is not in alignment with your vasana samskara, with your karma, with your embodiment, then that is not only a missed opportunity, this is a misuse. And to miss your chance in yoga is regarded as terrible, to misuse your chance is regarded as dreadful. So he was very clearly saying that. Now that verse unfortunately has been misinterpreted and misused as you follow your caste occupation or you follow your family occupation, that you do what your father was doing, that is your. No, that is not at all. Nowhere has it been said that dharma is a imitation of what. Everybody has to find out. Everybody has to find out what it is that they are best for. Now this is a difficult and complex business. What is it that I am meant to do? In the first place, this question is very rarely asked. Society does not encourage it. Families certainly do not encourage it because they do not want you running wild. They do not want you to do something that will stop you from earning good money, or they do not want you doing something that will, especially in a culture like ours where family honor and prestige is so important, they do not want you doing anything or acting in any way in which the family prestige or the family honor is at stake. So this becomes a rather difficult thing. This becomes a rather, because in one sense you can say Svadharma is actually about self-actualization. It is about finding how do I get to the top of the Maslowian hierarchy. After I fulfill all my survival needs, I fulfill all my societal needs, I fulfill even my needs for esteem and love and things like that, then what do I do that can transcend me? Now, the Indian culture, the yogic culture has always been geared around the fact that enlightenment and liberation is possible. And enlightenment and liberation is possible only for the human being, not even for the gods. So that is why Svadharma has become such an important thing. See, there is samajik dharma, there is dharma for the society at large, there is dharma for, but Swadharma becomes your unique, unrepeatable purpose. The universe had a need for you. There was a reason why your karma forced you to be born in this particular body to this particular set of parents at this time in this place. Because in yoga it is very well known, in fact all intelligent people know that all human life is from a statistical point of view very, very improbable. Each human being is a miraculous concatenation of circumstances. Each human being is so many factors have to come into play. Every generation before you had to stay alive to reproduce so that you had a shot, before the tiger ate them or the disease got them. So your entire line of biological descent could have been wiped out at any one given time. The fact that it did not is itself proof that the universe has some need for you. So in the culture it is very important, the Pitra Rina, we've just come out of it, where people have been doing all kinds of pujas to the ancestors. And that's not just your biological ancestors, because that really doesn't matter so much in yoga. If you accept the fact that you reincarnate, the people who have been your parents in one life become your children, your siblings, your enemies, So the actual relationships do not matter. What matters is the chance to be embodied. What matters is the chance to be born. And we are honoring that. that we were given a chance to be born, because unless we are embodied on this dimension, on the Mrityu Loka, which is what the earthly dimension is called, the chance to be enlightened and liberated is not there. So that is what we are honoring when we are honoring the Pitras or the ancestors. It's not a biological line of descent. It is a line of descent of gratitude, it is a line of descent of possibility, which people just don't get, which people simply don't get, and because if you believe in reincarnation and you believe in that the soul has multiple agendas to fulfill and it keeps coming, and many people find out that the relationships are hopelessly messed up. We we are married to somebody, we are friends with somebody, these things are too complicated and too naughty, which is why it is not a good idea to keep exploring what were my past life relationships with people around me. The answers are not likely to be very pleasant. But the honoring of the descent, the honoring of the descent is the honoring of the fact that you were consistently being given that chance and that you did not make use of it. So every time we do those rituals to the ancestors, if you look at the original Vedic way in which it is done, it's all encoded, it's all spiritual instructions are being given. I'm not going to get into that, but the entire ritual that you do, just like the rituals that you do, the Antyeshti, the funeral rituals, they are in ways of breaking karma, they are ways of transcending the karmic limitation. So I've spoken about Antyeshti also, the funeral rites, so that's another matter. But especially this whole ritual to Pitras, ritual to ancestors, is a way of acknowledging that we got this chance. We got this chance. So the Svadharma is to find out, your Entelechy is to find out what is my purpose. What is the thing that I can do uniquely, or I can do really well, or only I can do? Now, if you talk like this, the instant reaction is, who do you think you are? Why are you bothering your head with all those things? Why are you getting into those? Yes, because failure is quite much more common as an experience than success. So people are not very geared at even what does success really mean. I've noticed this very often, that people who are fortunate in their life circumstances always give a lot of credit to themselves. you know yeah, I don't believe in destiny, I don't blame it, but we are all such random shots, where we are going to be born, to whom, at what level of financial success or lack of it, deprivation, education, gender, none of these things are in our hands. To dismiss the role of fortune or to dismiss the role of chance in who you are is just not facing the facts squarely. The fact of the matter is, almost everything that makes you you, everything that makes your personality, your unique, your childhood, your upbringing, your education, all those things were not in your hand. Nobody ever asked you about any of those things. Later on you can change your name, and nowadays even your gender, but you know your your early education, your early socialization, that determines your personality. More or less, by the time you're 7, it is fixed. And you had no input in the matter, you had no choice in the matter. So I find it very interesting that well-off people always have this very touching faith in how much control they have over their life and how much what they have done is a matter of personal brilliance, without realizing that you may have had so many lucky breaks, just in who you are, where you are born. On the other hand, to consistently gripe and whine and complain that I have not been given a lucky break by the universe, that is equally stupid. Because it is what it is. You are given that embodiment means limitation. That is what people don't understand. A human body means limitation. It means limitation of physicality, it means limitation of mind, it means limitation of emotion, and all that is karmically determined. All that is vasana samskara. All that has to be accepted. There is a large part of our life over which nobody consulted us, over which we had no control, and that determines who we are. Nevertheless, we have to find out, okay, now what do I do? This is my embodiment, this is my limitation, what do I do now? In this life, given that this is my gender, this is my name, this is my education, this is what I know I can do, and most of us really don't know what we can do, because we never push ourselves, we never challenge ourselves. Now what do I do? In what way can I contribute? And it doesn't have to be something world changing. It doesn't have to be something so overwhelmingly dramatic and those kind of things. Svadharma, yes, since we are a yogic culture, the sort of basic default setting is always, does this what you are doing, how you are living your life, does that help you towards your enlightenment and liberation, or does it take you away? That question always has to be asked in your Svadharma. Now the problem in the 20th century too, first of all, in India we have forgotten about the word dharma. Why are you bothered about all this? It's like a post-retirement thing. You are to be interested in religious matters after you finish, and your children are basically hoping that you won't embarrass them. That's when you're supposed to take up religious matters. It's too late to find your Svadharma then. You have to find your Svadharma much earlier than that. The other great problem that I have noticed is, Joseph Campbell unfortunately made one statement, follow your bliss, and that probably has ruined more people. It's an awesome statement, but he's a very, very intelligent and brilliant man, and most people are simply not able to grasp it, or like in the sense of what Carl Gustav Jung said, which he got it from there, and even Aurobindo said basically the same thing. But people have confused that statement, and they have really ruined lives following their bliss, because people think that following your bliss means whatever gives me pleasure, whatever makes me happy, whatever gives me tingles, whatever excites me, and that is self-indulgent. That is not following your bliss. And on that basis, we are home to the largest film industry in the world, and Mumbai city is also Hindi cinema, and so you see a lot of people come from outside to become actors or directors or whatever, and they are all people who are making this mistake. They think that they are following their bliss when all they are doing is ruining their life. Because it gives them a certain emotional gratification, and they mistake that for bliss. When he said bliss, he was actually saying ananda. Now ananda is very different from happiness. Ananda is a deep interior state of in fact, there is a classification, maybe I'll speak sometime about it. Sri Aurobindo and the mother had a classification of the grades of happiness. I won't get into that now. But merely because it is something you like to do, that is not your Svadharma. That is not your Entelechy. And this is the biggest, I would say, flaw. People think that something we like to do is therefore something that, no, there are certain There should be, rather, I don't know if there are, but there should be, from what I have observed, there seem to be certain parameters, there seem to be certain criteria. That is that your Svadharma, is that your Entelechy? Because the first and most important thing is that, does it energize you? Not does it excite you. People mistake this also again. Does it give me a very tingly feeling all over? That's not the same as does it energize you. But can you do this day after day after day and not lose your enthusiasm for it? Do you still feel that this is a worthwhile process? So, it has to genuinely, it's like this whole confusion between introvert and extrovert. People don't understand what they mean. They are basically definitions of how people get energized. An extroverted person is energized by meeting people, by going out into the world and interacting. An introverted person is energized by withdrawing, by going into solitude. That's all it means. It has nothing to do with missability and shyness and ability to speak and ability to communicate. It's just a matter of how energy flows. So if you are in your Entelechy, if you are in a Svadharma, how does your energy flow? You might love to do it, you might be getting lots of fun doing it, but if your energy is draining, then it cannot be Svadharma. It's a very interesting hobby. This is, I think, mandatory. If the energy is going, then it cannot be. If at the end of the day, whatever it is that you're doing, if you're completely wiped out and you're like, God, I don't want to do that again, that cannot be a Svadharma. And it's a very simple test. It's an exceedingly simple test. Where is your energy? But because of this bliss business, everybody is constantly it's like some kind of romantic relationship with what you're doing. Like you want to feel all on a dopamine high, and so this again I found that most people don't understand. And in yoga they always teach you, if it is not working, then that is not the right thing for you. Now, that's not the current practice. The current practice everywhere is, if the process doesn't work, it's because you're not doing it correctly. That is completely wrong. Certain processes don't work on certain people. You have to give a different process for them. All sadhana is not for everybody. All kriya is not for everybody. All mantra is not for everybody. So a person teaching has to have some some diversity of knowledge. But it's what they say, if you have only a hammer, all you can see are nails. You will keep pounding away with that. So sometimes power saw is also needed. So this energy business, does what you are doing energize you? That is a vital question, and it is a question that is always asked in yoga. How do you feel? Are you getting more energy? Are you sleeping less? Are you emotionally more stable? Are your worries gone down? Are you able to be more resilient and deal with things better? So just in terms of psychological health, not just in terms of physical energy, but just in terms of psychological health, if what you think is your Svadharma is not making you a healthier person emotionally, mentally, physically, then that is not your Svadharma. It's a very interesting hobby that you have. That's not your Entelechy. Your Entelechy cannot drain you. If it is really Entelechy and not, many people, that is a tragedy. They cast around, they cast around, they cast around. And they never really find what it is that they really want to do, because nobody asks them this vital question: how do you feel when you are done? Many people, you learn something new, it's exciting, I can do this for the rest of my life. Maybe not. There are very, very few things that you can actually do for the rest of your life without being bored out of your skull. So this question about energy, and I find it very interesting. Why don't people ask themselves about that? If you're doing an exercise thing and all you're doing is I'm aching, I'm paining, this is hurting, that is hurting, and you think I'm becoming fitter or no, you're not. Does it shift your energy? Does it improve your energy? And energy everywhere, mentally, emotionally, physically, in terms of, and how you recover. Of course, you will get tired. Of course, there will be days when you will be down. But how quickly do you recover? And if you have to do that again, can you again do that with that same level of enthusiasm? So it becomes a very vital test. For me, it's very simple. I've been teaching the breaths now for almost 2 years. And it doesn't matter. I can still keep teaching the breaths. 8 spiritual breaths, first level, second level, third level, talk about the breaths, talk about the affirmation, and it's the same every time. That whatever that emotional high or that boost or that shot, I'm never tired of talking about it. I'm never tired of explaining it. I'm never tired of, otherwise you'll be like, how many times? Or when I do the tarot, again, for when I do the tarot, it's the same thing. I've been speaking for now 15 years on the tarot. And every time I do it, it's a different thing. Now, of course, other people get tired. Yeah. So that is a test. That is a test. Does this thing drain you, or does this thing energize you? And like all things in yoga, it is exceedingly simple and exceedingly difficult. That's the unique thing about yoga. All the really valuable things are child's play made easy, and they're really difficult to implement. And this one test of energy, this one test of what is your energy being like. So that is the first sort of rule, or that is the first sort of the second thing you should ask is, this thing that you're doing, this thing, whatever it is that you consider, this is my life's purpose, this is my vocation. The word used to be vocation in the beginning, that it's something that I do. Of course, then it became like to become a nun or a priest became a vocation, but that's what exactly the same thing was. This is my entelechy, this is my life's work. Is your vocation something that impacts people? Impact, of course, means positively. What kind of feedback do you get from people? If it is, oh, that was fantastic, that was so nice, that was so exciting, we should do it again, that is not precisely what you were. Because I'm speaking again from the yogic perspective, because in the yogic perspective, if what you're doing is your Svadharma, it should not only evolve you, it should evolve those you're engaging with. Are they also being helped towards enlightenment and liberation? So if the person comes back and says, I had to think about that, or you really made me shift my perspective about that, or I'm doing these things differently, or this is different in my life because of their engagement with you and the process that you're doing or the work that you're doing. If people come back and say, this has positively impacted my life, does it impact other people? Because you, of course, it is supposed to. Just in the fact that you are not drained of energy immediately means that it is impacting you. You have to keep that in mind. Is that impacting people? Because what is the point of, okay, it is a rare Svadharma that you are sitting in a Himalayan cave and you are impacting only the snake and the tiger and the trees, all right. But if it is genuine Svadharma, the environment will be impacted. But in most cases, authentic feedback comes from people. Authentic feedback comes from people. What is the impact of what you're doing? Again, if it is something that people are amused by, if it is something that people are entertained by, all good. Not necessary that it is an entelechy process. Not necessary that it is the soul's calling. You could just be really good at it. But when people say that this changed me, Even if it is small, infinite, minuscule, but people say this changed me, and this changed me in a way that enlarges consciousness. I totally began to live in a different way because of what you said or what you did or because of what you taught me or because of my interaction with you. Then you know you're on the right track. Because it is consciousness after all. It is about getting to that point. Please remember, Svadharma, Dharma is what holds the universe together. That which holds the universe together is Dharma. It is the principle that holds the universe together. It is the principle that is the opposite of entropy. Entropy decays and disintegrates. Dharma is what holds the universe and life in place. So anything that increases that power is your Swadharma. Anything that impacts other people. Because how do you know? You may think I am doing brilliant work, all right. In the end, sometimes yes, somebody like Van Gogh, poor fellow, all his life he was so far ahead of the curve that nobody got what he was doing. But today at least there is some kind of, but it's not like people did not know. People did know that this is different. Validation is not the same thing as impact. It might be that people are getting impacted or people are responding in a certain way. Very often people pitch their arguments or do what they do in a sense because they become addicted to validation. They become addicted to positive feedback. It's that whole need for feedback. Especially I was a corporate trainer for a long time, and everybody would live by that feedback form, miserable piece of toilet paper that would be handed out at the end. And because I am what I am, I actually used to say, who the hell are these people to give feedback on me? Anyways, but that's not the same. When I'm saying impact, I do not mean feedback. Because feedback can be manipulated. Depending on how you ask the question, you can extract the answer. That's one of the most, all confidence tricksters know that, all surveyors know that, how you ask the question gets the. But if you've done something, one day you went somewhere, you did something, and 3 days later suddenly you get not 3 days, 3 years later suddenly you get an email from somebody saying that that was really valuable. At that time maybe I didn't know it, but I realized how much my shift, then okay, I've done something really good there. I've impacted. The reason why I never cared about the feedback form was all the participants used to love me, the management would never hire me again. this is this is absurd because all these people are staying in touch with me personally and the management doesn't want me back there, because basically because I shake people up. I ask all these fundamental questions. What is it that you really value in life? And they don't want to hear that we don't value our jobs. Now, does that mean that one should not take a job to pay the bills? Of course not. Nobody is saying be impractical. Nobody is saying, but do not confuse, just because it is a very high paid job, do not confuse that with your Svadharma or your Entelechy. Understand, I have sold out, and be honest about that. Because in India, because the IITs and the IIMs get people so much money, people all end up that, and then what do? They work in banks in America. After they go into these exceedingly difficult, because survival is important. I will never gainsay the need for survival. But accept this is something I am doing for survival. And maybe it's not something that you really thought you were good at, or it's not something that you really were interested in, but maybe all the parameters of Svadharma fitting in by accident or by luck or by destiny, you did end up there. But in most cases we know we are doing this to pay the bills. And that is quite an honorable thing to do. Why not? Then you shouldn't complain. If you know that what you're doing is to pay the bills, then you shouldn't gripe and complain. If you don't have the skills that will reward you, then you do what it's necessary to survive. So I don't want to send out some kind of impractical message that you just follow your bliss and everything will follow. Not necessarily true. Van Gogh is the best example. He was one of the most authentic human beings in the planet, and what, one painting in his entire life was sold independently. Today $160 million, $180 million. Yeah. J.R.R. Tolkien, he couldn't afford a secretary, so he typed out the entire Lord of the Rings, all 3 volumes himself, with 2 fingers because he couldn't even type properly. And today the movies are making over $1 billion each, So a financial reward is not necessarily the best parameter for judging, are you following your bliss, are you following your Svadharma, because it might not be there. Though I am saying, are you being rewarded is also a valid question. Now, rewards are not only financial, that's a good parameter. Is it a good financial reward? It's a good parameter. But sometimes what you're doing may be so off the wall, or it may be so far ahead of the game that people don't know how to reward you financially, and the only reward that you get is appreciation. Or financial reward is a different matter, because in yoga it is well known that the money power is still not completely in the hands of the good people. The good guys don't have total control of it, so we need to rest. But yeah, in general terms also, if you are doing a good job, why is a reasonable reward not coming for it? Now again we have to look at it. If you feel that my sense of being energized and my sense of impacting people is worth much more than the financial rewards that are coming in, good, that's a good trade-off. Why not? But if you're getting 0 financial returns, usually what happens is the person has not taken the trouble, and that is a falling away from Svadharma. The person has not taken the trouble to learn how to market himself, or even worse, ask for their real value. Because he was disturbed, Van Gogh did not, he was emotionally disturbed, he never knew how to play the game, he never knew how to engage with collectors and galleries and those kind of things. He thought he would outsource it to his brother was not very good at it either. Whereas Picasso was a much greater, networker than he ever was an artist, and he was brilliant at it. So you might be following your bliss, but there might be certain skills that you need to develop. There might be certain social skills that you need to develop along the way. If you don't develop that, that is not the fault of your bliss. That is not the fault of your Svadharma. It is you not matching up to the requirement of the Svadharma. You cannot set yourself up as a Hatha Yoga instructor and say, these asanas I cannot do, right? But I love to do yoga. It is my Svadharma. See, I have given up fighting against stupidity in the world. I try to, you know. Yeah, I have given up trying to fight against stupidity. It's like, but I'm just saying, now it might be true that your bliss, that your Svadharma, your Entelechy is to be a Hatha Yoga instructor. You cannot tell your class, this asana I cannot do. Or this asana I cannot do as yet. Now, very often, especially in spiritual things, people want the reputation of being spiritual. They don't really want to be spiritual. And the two are entirely different things. They want to be known as a holy person. To be actually a holy person is tedium. And most saints are real pains. They are real pains in the backside. When they die, they are very nice. But when they are actually living, they are very difficult people. Yeah, absolutely. See, you're uncompromising. I won't sell out. Fine, that's perfectly valid. But if you enter into a field, the field already has certain parameters. If the game has to be played in a certain way, you develop those skills. Or you accept that my rewards from this particular area will be limited because I am not willing to do the things that are required. So, very often because people are not willing to sell themselves, they are not willing to market themselves, or they are not willing to, I am not willing to market myself. I do a terrible job at it. But I accept that, because the strain of doing that is so much greater than any benefit I would get that I am like, okay. Though I don't exactly get your point, Aditi. What were you saying? What were you?
You know what you said about Picasso,
Yeah.
and with the fact that you network with an artist.
Yeah.
I find that that's true for most fields. Now people spend far less time working and spending more time just
It has
trying to put
become an
themselves out
it
there.
has become an unfortunate social requirement that publicity of your work is more important than the work.
And not just true for art, but for
Yeah.
anything.
For anything, it's like that how you
That's the way of the world.
everything is like, okay, how many people can you get endorsements from, how many, and everything. It's like, again, that's part of the deal, that's part of how society is structured. Problem is again because of this follow your bliss business. It was promised to you that if you follow your bliss, everything will magically come in its wake. No, it doesn't. The things that you have to do, you have to do. And nobody said because you follow your bliss, you will instantly come into mega levels of success. So how does it reward you? You have to ask yourself, first of all, what do you consider optimal or acceptable levels of reward? If your only criteria for reward is money or fame, you're bound to be disappointed. Because in any profession, in any field, only 5% of people are at the top. Merely because you're not at the top, or you're not, it might be that later on there were so many people in the 19th century who were regarded as great writers and great artists, nobody bothers about them today. Times change, fashion changes. Do you remember that movie Shakespeare in Love? With that, and in that whole film, wherever he goes, Shakespeare has this mortifying experience. People keep quoting Marlowe at him. Yeah. They come to audition for his plays and they are quoting Marlowe. He's going on the boat and the boatman is announcing very proudly, I carried Kit Marlowe. At the time, Marlowe was regarded as the greatest playwright in the English language. Today, all those sequences are funny because we know what Shakespeare is going to be. That. So, what should Shakespeare have done at that moment? He should have just given up, saying like, "I'll never get the validation or the fame or the money that Marlowe gets." So to look at the tangible, immediate benefit as reward is wrong. But certainly, I think very often the creative people, they are diffident at asking for value, because genuinely creative people always recognize those who are better than them, and they feel a little ashamed. How can I, when my work is still lacking in so many ways? And the hustlers, they have no problem. They have no quality control in their mind, because hustlers seem to be like those Dunning-Kruger people. They really can't distinguish between crap work and good work. I've explained about the Dunning-Kruger at one time before. So maybe creative people, maybe people in the Svadharma should overcome their diffidence and ask for value. Now, I don't recommend my path, but my path is, this is it, take it or leave it. This is how much I ask, or these are my rules of engagement. You're free to take it, or you're free to stop wasting my time. That's probably not the optimal thing, but that's what works for me. Not asking for value is being inauthentic. If you feel that what you're offering is valuable, why not ask for the best possible price that people are willing to give for it? Because again, this is one of the great problems. It was never true, but today it has become a problem in India, where spiritual things are supposed to be free. Actually, spiritual things should be the most difficult of access. Because people talk about the old style. The old style was pretty dreadful. You would go to an ashram, and at the end the teacher could ask you anything. Get me 100 white horses with one left black ear. Because he was in the mood at that moment. So not to ask value for what one is offering. If one is genuinely convinced of what one is doing, why don't you ask the value? The message from society is always clear. Oh, nobody will give that much. The minute people say that, if you really believe in what you do, you just cut that conversation right there. You should not allow that input to come in and pollute your brain. If you feel that what you are doing is genuinely helpful or genuinely transforming, you should not allow input from the outside to come in. So that's a negative, that's like a blocking. But even to ask for what one wants, I find that a lot of people are diffident about it. The genuinely talented people are diffident about it. The mediocre people are always the ones hustling. So that is not a problem of Svadharma, that is a problem of basic psychology. That is something. So the rewards that you get, but like I said, the rewards may be in the future. Because Shakespeare did make enough money, and he retired and settled down to be a gentleman in Stratford, and that's the irony. He was so damn good at it, but he never really cared. All he wanted to do was to make enough money and retire. But I still remember, wherever he goes, this is Kit Marlowe, and they are always quoting that Helen of Troy, which Marlowe wrote. So rewards become very tricky, but rewards are genuine. Now there may be rewards of praise, or there may be rewards of acceptance, or I'm saying leave that. Ever since Sri Aurobindo sat and he transformed it, where he said that this business of spiritual people always moving around with a begging bowl has to stop, and he sat and he really broke that vibration in the universe, where money can now come for spiritual things. It was one of the greatest things he has ever done. If you're offering a spiritual process, money can flow. So it should no longer be a crushing obstacle that the rewards are not coming, because we can ask. And the last thing about Svadharma you must ask, which is probably the most important thing, is how does it transform you? Transform your consciousness, shift your consciousness. Do you feel yourself growing year to year? Because day to day, week to week, month to month may be difficult. But do you feel yourself growing year to year? Suppose you're doing the same process. In my case, I've been teaching tarot for 15 years. More. I couldn't approach it the way I used to approach it 15 years back. Everything is different. How I started teaching the breaths, I know, and today how I'm teaching, everything is different. So you can feel that shift, that very tangible shift, that enlargement of your consciousness. You can feel that you are going into a more powerful place. You can feel that the internal shift is going somewhere, and that is a very vital part of the Svadharma, the Entelechy. That how am I going? How am I moving? What is this doing to me? Because if it is just a job, then you're just repeating it. There is no creative breakthrough in how you're communicating. There is no more effective, efficient way in how it is that you're doing it. But if it is your Svadharma, you just keep getting better and better and better at it. If you find that you're falling into a habitual rut, then maybe it's not your Svadharma. Because your Svadharma will transform you. Your Entelechy should transform you. It's like what I keep saying about yoga, there is no plateau. You're either growing or you're sliding down. There is no plateau in yoga. It's either up or down. There is no. So this is most difficult for people, especially if you're skilled at something, because then it's very easy to fall into that repetitive pattern. It's just very easy to fall into that. You have the parameters of how you're going to do it, and you just play it out. You just play it out. Nothing wrong with that. It's always useful to have a structure. It's always useful to have some basic skeletal outlines or whatever. But if you find over time that whatever this thing that you're doing is just repetition, and it is not transforming, it is not original, it is not leading to new insight, it is not leading to new directions, or the feedback that you're getting is the same kind of feedback, you've not got any new kind of feedback. You've not got people coming and saying something different about how it impacted them. It's the same thing, which means you're just pressing that same old button again and again, and you're not looking at any other buttons that could be pressed. Then it might be that you're highly skilled at something, but not necessarily that's your Svadharma. Because in the end, your Svadharma has to transform you. It has to transform you to the point that it takes you to a place where the possibility of being enlightened and liberated is very clear. So this if what you are doing is only engaging and only interesting, that is not necessary that it is your Entelechy. If what you are doing is transforming you, then it is the real deal. And it takes some time. Because there are many things that interest you, and there are many things maybe that you're also really good at. There are many things that you would get a lot of social praise for, and you would get a lot of social rewards for also. But if in the end it is not transforming you, if you really cannot feel year by year there is a shift in my consciousness, year by year I am growing larger, year by year something is changing for the better within me, I am evolving, I am growing, and I don't mean in terms of deluding yourself, which is the easiest thing in the world. The easiest thing in the world is to access beings from other dimensions, and great masters are communicating to you. All that is, the minute you hear about I am under guidance, all right, thank you very much, please spare me. But you can see that. You can see very palpably in the quality of your output, in what you're doing. And it doesn't have to be a spiritual process. Even if it is just something that you're doing, is it shifting you? Is it shifting you? Now, all our classical performance arts in India are very spiritually based. And within the musical tradition, there is a thing called the chilla, where the chilla is where they, for 41 days, they lock the musician in the room with his instrument. And there are no books, no nothing. There is a toilet, and the food is put in 2 or 3 times a day, whatever. And he just has to find that authenticity between him and his instrument in those 41 days. Many people break the instrument because many people come out and they are completely transformed. They start playing at a level that is supernatural. About 10-15% of the people stop playing and take to a life of spirituality. They just completely shut down everything else. They take renunciation. Today, nobody has the courage or the discipline. It is becoming increasingly rare, but it was very, very common. Almost every classical musician had to go through that. And similar kinds of things would be done with dancers and everything, because all these processes, in the end, you could not delude yourself. If something was really your Svadharma, or something was really something that was authentic to you, you could not delude yourself. So they might have been very good with the instrument, but in those 40 days they discovered, this is not my Svadharma, this is not something that I really, it was like a hobby, or it was a hobby, it was like a skill, So this is sometimes I feel everybody should be, it should be done for people, you just lock them up for 40 days with that thing. Yeah. Right. Yeah, in art schools also, even the artist, it used to be done. The artist, the sculptor, everything, they would just be locked in the room. Here is your chisel, here is your hammer, here is your block of stone. Figure it out. So now, why they used to do was that if this is really not the Svadharma of the person, he is going to waste, or she is going to waste the rest of their life on this one thing. So get it out of the way early. Now, how do we do that in today's world, where careers don't last and everything is so, it becomes more and more difficult. So these would be the only ways, from what I have discovered from the yogic literature and everything, I find that these are the only 4 ways of discovering, is this really my Svadharma, is this really my Entelechy? There isn't any other way. How many days in art school they would lock them up?
Well, it depends, 3 months to 10 days.
Okay.
I was attended thing, which I think there were only 2 of us, and the
Right.
other person is now completely mad. And you? Headed there. I made a
Sanity is overrated. What is that in Lewis Carroll? I'll tell you a secret. We are all mad here. All the best people are. You see, it was a cultural defense.
man and I'll cure him.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a cultural, that structure, that let's not waste time. If this is not really authentic to the person, let's not waste their time. It was a cultural defense. The mechanism was in place in the entire culture. Similarly with yoga. Yoga, of course, is very harsh. You would go to some ashram and you would say, I want to meditate. Okay. You want to learn spiritual process. Come sit. This actually was the test to join the ashram. Nobody does it anymore, but this was the real test. Maybe they still do. They'd make you sit. They'd put soil in your lap. They'd take seeds and they'd put it into the soil and they'd sprinkle water over it. We'll come back when it's germinated. If you move, the germination won't happen. if when we are back and it has germinated, right, you can come in. So, things are much easier now. Things are much easier now. This was the actual test. This was the actual test for joining. So when people complain that life is hard, I'm like, you have no idea, dear people. I would fail. I'm openly saying I would fail. So once again, does it energize you? Does it impact people? Does it reward you? Does it transform you? Simple. Just 4 vital questions. Whole story of Entelechy and Svadharma is that. Yes? Sarvam Shivamaya.